Welcome back to DBL. It's hard to believe it's been 20 years since the attacks on the World Trade Center, but for some, it seems like yesterday. People like Jack Kemp, who was in Tower 2, the moment the second plane hit. We will speak to him live about what this anniversary means to him. But first, here is his survival story.
The plane just hit the World Trade Center. What? The 737?
What?
Like the World Trade Center.
Who are you talking to?
Oh, God.
It was a day that changed everything for so many. Jack Kemp worked for Morgan Stanley, one of the largest employers in the World Trade Center, and was on the 70th floor of Tower 2 when the first plane hit Tower 1.
Somebody came in and said, "Your wife's on the phone." And I said, "What does my wife want?" And they said, "She needs to talk to you." So I picked up the phone and she said another plane, a plane had hit Tower 1.
As Jack was gathering his coworkers to evacuate, the second plane hit Tower 2.
It knocked me across my office into a bookshelf, and all the books fell down. The building moved 18 to 24 inches, as big as that building was, from the impact of that plane.
2 stairwells had caved in. Jack and 4 of his coworkers were trapped. They made their way to an emergency stairwell and got out safely. Nearly 3,000 employees, including Jack, managed to escape, but 16 employees at Morgan Stanley did not.
The pain of knowing you've lost people and you survived is something that's very, very hard to get over.
Wow, chilling. Jack, thank you so much for joining us here at DBL and for having the courage to share your story with us.
Thank you.
In fact, hearing your story, it is unbelievable. So relay to our reviewers, what was going through your head when your building was hit, and how did you stay calm? Did you stay calm?
Well, unfortunately, I was there in 1993 when they bombed the basement of the World Trade Center. And so when this event occurred, military training kicked in. I was a former Arctic paratrooper, and
wow.
You're trained to try and think past the event that's going on. There was a horrific fireball outside my window, and a gigantic explosion, unlike almost anything you could ever imagine. I actually thought it was a bomb going off in the building. Fortunately, our head of security after the 1993 event had basically implemented plans anticipating that we might be attacked again, and this time from the air. So every 6 weeks, we had a fire drill where we had to walk down a number of flights of stairs to get you accustomed to getting out of the building. His philosophy was, you can always come back up if we're wrong, but if you don't get out, it could be bad. So our company was really prepared. Rick Rescorla saved all of our lives. And everyone that was a survivor thanks him for that. The sad thing about that is that Rick was a very diligent Vietnam hero, and he actually continued to go through the building looking to make sure that all of our employees were out. And in the end, that cost him his life when the towers came down.
I want to ask you about survivor's guilt, because you brought that up a little bit. I can't imagine what that is like for you. How are you doing today, and how does survivor's guilt, which is so understandable and natural, paint your everyday life?
Well, it's been very hard, and it's especially hard every year at this week.
Yeah.
I've talked with a number of my close employees that escaped with me that day, and most of us kind of go into hiding this week. It's just very tough for us. The company was great. They've given us therapy. We have our own little survivors group that I mentioned.
Wow.
But I have nightmares. On our way down the stairwell, when we got down to about the 23rd floor, we saw firemen coming up. We were in the firemen's stairwell. And there were only 5 or 6 of us there. So as we saw these guys coming by, they are my image of a classic New York City fireman.
Wow.
They're Irish. I'm half Irish. So these are all young guys carrying all that fire equipment. In my mind now, my nightmare is they're going to their death and I'm going out.
Wow.
And that's really always tough to handle.
So sorry.
I mean, so you went back to Ground Zero for the first time 12 years after the attacks. What was that like for you?
Well, for 20 years, the World Trade Center was my home. You all work in a building that's your home as well. Well, I worked there for probably almost as much time as you spend in your real house. And so that they destroyed my office and my house was pretty traumatic to me, as well as the fact that 3,000 people had died at Ground Zero. So I really didn't want to go back down there ever. My granddaughter, Riley, turned 12, and she and my daughters all convinced me to go back down to Ground Zero. And so I took Riley and my grandson, Mac, down to see the World Trade Center complex that day. It was hard to do. Those of you that haven't been there, the World Trade Center Memorial is a beautiful place. It's, I guess, now the most visited site in New York City. Wow. All around that acre memorial waterfall are the names of every person that died that day, and it's almost a holy ground. To see that and to see my friends' names in a number of different companies, as well as my own that had died there, just tears your heart out. But it was a great thing for me to share with my granddaughter and grandson, because I think it sets their mind in place to memorialize those people that lost their lives.
Wow. Thank you, Jack, so much for joining us, for sharing your story, and also for mentioning Rick Rescorla, right? Rick Rescorla, what a hero. And I'm glad that we can learn his name and why he should be celebrated. We wish you and your family well, and you are a hero as well. Absolutely. I want you to know that. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.